Hello, this is Bonnie, and today we're going to do some quick stamping and stenciling. I already have a lot of the things already set up. I am going to be using, this is Fairy Florals from Fairy Hugs. I'm also going to be using the brand new Castle Tower from the latest Fairy Hugs collection from the Fairy Tales theme. So I've already got that set up in my small Misty, as I have my larger one packed to go on vacation. So I'm going to go ahead and get this stamped first, and I am going to be using the VersaFine Clair Morning Mist. Now you can do this two ways. You can do it with Morning Mist, or you can do it with the Nocturne. I'm planning to color mine in. If you're not going to color yours in, you don't need to use a Morning Mist. You can just use the Nocturne and just use it the way it is. But I wanted to add some color. So we'll get this all stamped up. And then I'm going to do that just one more time. In the center, I think I missed a little bit of ink. It's harder for me to see the Morning Mist when it stamps. And I don't care if this is just a tad bit darker. Stamping it twice does make it a little bit darker. Okay, so I'm all set. So the next thing I want to do is I'm going to take this out, and I'm going to be doing some stenciling. I'm going to get this out really quick. I have that all set up too. And for that, like I showed you, I am going to be using the Fairy Florals. And this time I'm going to be using Tumbled Glass, Broken China, and Chipped Sapphire. And what I'm going to do is put this, you can see there's all these different designs on here, and I think this looks really good by the castle. So I'm going to grab my blending brush, and I'm going to start, actually I'm going to start with the Chipped Sapphire, so I'm going to use my darker one. I'm going to start at the top and blend down. And the inkier your pads are, and I'm sure mine, because I've had them for a little bit now, they probably, I either need to refill them or buy new. All right, let's see how that looks. That looks really great. And then I'm going to go in with Broken China, and I'm just going to blend up into that. Yep. Okay, and then our next one would be Tumbled Glass. It's a little bit lighter. Okay. I'm just going to keep that really, really light around the castle. And I'm going to leave a little bit of room for a sentiment, but I wasn't really sure where I was going to put it. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do with that. And that is pretty simple, adding that all together, as you know. The other thing I want to do is I want to blend it out just a little bit. So what I want to do, just to soften that just a little bit, I think that I'm going to go ahead and use just a tad bit of water and a cleaner brush so that it doesn't, yeah. So I always try to have a clean brush so that I can actually do that. And this is going to, yep, slightly smear it, which is what I wanted. I'm just not all about the complete white backgrounds. And as you can see, that little bit of water does come in and blur that a little bit, which is what I wanted. All right, so the next thing I want to do is I'm going to get out my pigment powder, and I'm going to add just a little bit of that. I'm going to combine the two together. All right, so I pulled out, it's called Magical Shaker, and it's Lindy's, and I am using Time Travel Teal, and I'm also going to be using Glittering Gold. So this one has two ways to shake it. It has the part that has that, and then it has a full. So for this, I'm just gonna, this one's quite brilliant, I want to say, more intense of the ones that I actually have. And so that's the aqua one, and then this is the gold one. I don't see very much. As soon as I start seeing it, there'll be a lot. Okay, so that's good. And then what I'm going to do is just spray that. And I'm going to get that a little bit. The reason it absorbs this, I need to add a little bit more water. Okay. All right. I should have used my other mat. I wasn't thinking. This still will work. And then I have another powder, but I'm going to keep it with this. I think this is going to work great once we get that all done. So the next thing we do is I'm going to let this dry. Actually, what I usually do is I bring this to and I iron it on the ironing board, and then I'll be back. Okay, so I have that dried off, and the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp the sediment Today and Always from Fairy Hugs. I'm just going to put that at the bottom, well, semi-bottom. All right, and that worked out great. So then the next thing I want to do is, I'm not done stenciling. I am going to add, which is one of my favorite things to do, I am going to be adding some texture paste using another Fairy Hugs stencil called a Swirling Snow. And basically what I try to do is make it so that it kind of like goes around that, but that's off to the side. I'm just going to make sure, yeah. I could even go that way, so I'm even around that. I wasn't really thinking that through, but I think that's going to work for me. Yeah, we're going to do that. And I'm going to be using, actually I'm using molding paste. This paste is not as thick. It's more like toothpaste, but it still works fine. I really prefer the texture paste, but I have that packed. So we're just going to go ahead and use this. Actually, I think I'm going to kind of fussy do this, because I do want some over here. And I am going to go on top of what I already have there, because there's not very much in this stencil. But you can see what I mean. This is not as thick, and so it tends to, I want to say smear a little bit more. But it'll still work for what I want to do. All right, I'm going to come down here a little bit. But I don't want it over the castle, and I don't want it on the center of it. Okay. And we're going to come right down here. And if I find that I need to add more, I'll add more after I see how this looks. I think we can go a little bit right there. Well, I think I'm going to wait, because if I have to, I'll use my stencil over there separately in the smaller sections. All right, you'll see what I mean. It does do a little bit of blurring because it's not as thick. Oh, that's not too bad. All right, I'm going to have to get that cleaned off. But before I do this, I'm going to do this really quickly. And that is, I like to put, how would I do that? Okay, Fairy Hugs actually has really pretty glitter. And this one happens to be the Confetti version Pixie does. And I put that on my molding paste right away when it's wet. And it gives me really pretty sparkle, and it's a little bit raised, but not, you know, anything that's significant, so that it's fine for mailing. And I think, like I said, I don't know if I'm going to add any over to the side. I kind of like it the way it is. And make sure I get some there. So I let that sit on that. It's wet, and then I'll take some of that back off. Okay, so I'm going to get my paper. I need to get this in the water right. I need to get my stencil in the water right away, or I will not be able to get that clean. All right, I need a piece of paper. Here we go. And I can put the glitter back on. Now you can see that it's all glittery. So I let that sit on there while that dries, the paste dries, and then what I do is I heat emboss that. So I will do that in just a minute and get my stencil cleaned up. Okay, so I've got the castle colored, and I've got the molding paste all dried up with the glitter. As you can see, the glitter that's on it. And I want to ground this castle, so I'm using my torn piece of paper, and I am going to be using Distress Oxide Chip Sapphire to do a little bit of grounding of that castle. And I think I need to do that in 2 different places. Oops. Alright, and I need to kind of get that close to where that is as well. And I'm trying to see if I can do that without getting... I know that I can put this Distress Oxide on top of that paste and it'll turn that color, but I don't really want it to right there. So, but I think I'm going to have to, in order to get that look like it's sitting. So we're going to... There we go. That looks better. All right, so then what I am going to do is I am going to go all the way around the card and add some of this to the edges. And I see I'm going to have to do a little bit more. I should have really used the watercolor paper, and I didn't. So I'm going to have to flatten. I'm going to have to work on flattening this a little bit more. So I want to keep that dark up there, but then I want to bring it down so that I have the other color to keep it with that other color. So I think I'm going to just put a little bit down here to balance that off. And then I'm going to use the broken china to come down, kind of like how I did when I went to go do the stencil. Just going to keep that in. And then the bottom part of it, I'll use the tumbled glass. See how that kind of like blends in with what I already did up above with the stencil. All right. And then the tumbled glass. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and work on getting that a little bit flatter before I put it on the card, and then I will be right back. And that's what we have so far. Okay, so I have my card completed and on a card now, or a card base. So I appreciate you stopping by, and I will have what I used below in the description. Thanks so much.